You found this interesting story from Amazon. I mean, just more dystopian nightmare from them.
I wanted to cover this today because actually it's Jeff Bezos is officially no longer the CEO of Amazon. And it's kind of amazing to see what exactly has happened since the year 1997. I mean, Jeff Bezos was this guy working in private equity, drives across the country, famously creates the bookstore, but always has this vision of his head of the everything store. And in a way, what he's created is kind of amazing. But there's a big downside to packages that come to your house within 8 hours. Sometimes I look at that and I'm like, how is this even possible?
Right.
Now I know how it's possible. And I think all of us have to really reckon with what this means for millions of people. Amazon is the second largest employer in the United States. Think about how much impact they have on our labor market. They have grown by orders of magnitude during the pandemic. They are probably, in my opinion, the most powerful company in the United States, even more so than Walmart, because they have online plus the retail force. So let's put this up there on the screen. This is from Bloomberg, which is fired by bot. It's you against the machine. And what Bloomberg here does, this is a really good piece of reporting, is talk about how contract drivers say that algorithms terminate them by email, even when they have done nothing wrong. He talks about how a 63-year-old Army veteran was stunned. He had been working and delivering packages for Amazon for 4 years. The algorithms had tracking him decided he was not doing his job properly. He had been fired by a machine. He said that he took the termination hard. He had prided himself on a strong work ethic, and he helped cook for 250,000 Vietnamese refugees at Fort Chaffee in Arkansas. He says, I'm an old school kind of guy. I gave every job 110%. This really upset me because we're talking about my reputation. They say I didn't do the job when I know damn well that I did. And here's, I think, the craziest part. He has no idea why he was fired. Zero. Just that they determined, relative to other drivers and more, that he wasn't doing the job properly. And what's even crazier is that Amazon doesn't actually control this. It's all, well, it's third-party contracted out to another company which oversees their contract drivers and the performance then of its workers. Now, people familiar with the strategy say that Jeff Bezos believes that machines make decisions more quickly and accurately than people, reducing costs and giving Amazon a competitive advantage. Now, maybe he's right, but that reducing costs and competitive advantage, it comes exactly at the price of having somebody like a 63-year-old Army veteran who is fired. I mean, being fired from a job is one of, I think they say it's up there, the second most amount of stress, except for divorce, that a person can experience in their life. And this is now happening on the scale of tens of thousands of people all across the United States who are being tracked by algorithms. And I want to make sure that people know this. It's not just Amazon. Remember, I talked about this on Rogan's podcast. Walmart just said, we're going to give all our employees, 700,000 employees, a new Samsung smartphone. People are like, hey, cool, now I get a smartphone. Checked in the permissions of all of those, they can track you. If they have that thing in your pocket, they know everything about you, how many steps you're taking, how fast you're working, how long your break really was, and more. This is the beginning of automated firing, of automated tracking on a scale that people really have not even understood. Amazon's been at the forefront of this, and unfortunately, I think this is just the tip of the spear of what's coming. And I think the government should do something about it.
Amazon is at the forefront. They're at the bleeding edge of this type of inhumane treatment of workers. I've long believed that the biggest divide in this country is people who are actually treated like human beings with wants and needs and dreams and desires and concerns outside of the workplace, and people who are treated like they're not, like they're human, not even human, that they're bots and widgets to be plugged in and used and abused. And Amazon, what we know, what we have covered and documented time and time again, is that is exactly how they treat their blue-collar workforce. They intentionally use them up. There's even a time frame, 3 years. They think basically Bezos, and this comes from the top, this comes from Bezos, who believes that after 3 years, a warehouse worker is basically done. They put all these incentives in place to push them out the door, give them absolutely very, very little ability to rise through the ranks to a higher level position. And so people get frustrated and they just have an intentional high rate of burnout and churn. What you learn here is some of the even more sort of like dehumanizing tactics that are being used. This is specific to what they call flex drivers in that program. It's sort of like it's like a gig economy type of thing where you're not one of the regular Amazon delivery drivers, but you go and get the packages that the truck had to leave before these last packages made it onto the truck, and so these are the delivers that you're doing. They profiled 2 different individuals here, the gentleman that you mentioned, who the reason that he thinks he got fired by automated message with no ability really to appeal to anything other than an additional series of bots and automated messages is because he arrived in an apartment complex. The complex wasn't open yet. The gates were still locked. He's trying to figure out what to do. There was no one to call. There was no manager call. Couldn't get the customer on the phone. You're supposed to leave it in that case is at the front desk. The front desk isn't open. So that sets him behind. And of course, like every aspect of Amazon, everything is tracked. Everything is monitored. You have a certain amount of time that it's supposed to take you to perform these tasks. And it doesn't matter if there's massive traffic, if the apartment building's locked. In another instance, there was a locker that the package was supposed to be left in. Well, the locker was locked. There was nothing he could do. So he's calling. He's trying to figure out what to do. He documented all of these things. And this is after years of working for the company reliably and delivering and even being praised and considered for a position training other drivers because he'd done such an effective job. Just like that, they let him go. And when you try to appeal, you get back these fake, automated, pre-canned messages. There's no ability to actually talk to a human being and say, look, this is what happened here. This is my livelihood.
Any boss who heard that would be like, oh, don't worry about it, man. All good.
Yeah, and you have this long track record of total loyalty to the company and total effective delivery in terms of your job. There's another woman who almost lost her home because similar circumstances where it was really outside of her control what was thrown at her, and she went from having a great rating in the Amazon app to being fired overnight. The thing that really got me, though, is they talk about how the executives knew that there would be what they called collateral damage. That's according to a former engineer who helped design this automated system. Quote, executives knew this was going to shit the bed, this person said. That's actually how they put it in meetings. The only question was how much poo we wanted there to be. So they knew that some drivers, like the 2 individuals who are profiled here, would be cast aside, fired wrongfully, have their lives turned upside down, total stress, potential loss of home, all of that stuff, that there would be collateral damage. But they didn't care because that's what, when you're this giant multinational corporation and all you care about is the bottom line, you say, well, are we going to save a little bit more money?
Right.
Then we are going to cause pain? Like, is this going to be not good for us? Who cares about this, 1 or 5 or 10% or whatever of workers who are treated so terribly and fired wrongfully, again, by a bot? So that is the, heartless, soulless, cold, hard calculation at the center of all of this that the executives were totally aware of and totally cool with.
This is why you should care. Amazon employs 1.3 million people across the world, added 500,000 workers in 2020. Their headcount is up 63% from just a year ago. They're actually just getting started. They hire 700 people every hour. Now, here in the United States, think about this too, which is that I've thought a lot about if you're 16 in this country, and especially if you don't decide you don't want to go to college, which is more than half, what do you think you're going to do? Now, in the past, there was a semi-variety of options. If you wanted to stay in your hometown, the various trade work and stuff that you could pick up, other types of work, which would enable you to live not necessarily middle class, but not too far away, a decent enough life. As the Amazonification of America, which has followed the Walmartification of America, happens, it will soon be, in my opinion, Amazon will basically be the only choice if you do not live in an urban or suburban district. All of the economic activity sucked out, all of the rural parts of this country becoming serviceable only because of their proximity to other big cities. I remember reading this in Alec McGillis's book on Amazon. Dayton, Ohio, which at the time, 100 years ago, Dayton, Ohio was one of the Silicon Valleys of the United States in terms of how much manufacturing output and some of the inventions that happened there. Well, now it is known as the corrugated cardboard capital of America and as a great distribution point because it's a one day drive from 1/3 of the US population. As in, the economic value of Dayton only comes from the fact that it is near places where other people want to live. Now, that's going to happen to everyone. And if you make it so that your first job is not about a grocery store, if it is a grocery store, maybe Amazon owns that grocery store. If it is grocery, maybe it's delivering groceries for Amazon delivery. If it is a warehouse job, and hey, $15 an hour in a rural part of this country, that's a lot of money. $15 an hour, $17 an hour. You may not have a say, you may get fired by a bot, but that's okay. So you go and you work for Amazon. And you can just see how this scales up all across the country. This company is moving at a pace that we haven't come to grips with because of the pandemic. 63% year-over-year increase in employment alone. What's that going to look the next year and the next year? Soon, I think it'll be the largest employer in the United States, and even more so after that. I already think it's the most powerful company in the world. And today is Jeff Bezos' last day as CEO. In a way, he built one of the greatest companies the world has ever seen. But at a certain point, it's like with the graph, you begin to intersect with what is good for this country versus the bottom line of Amazon. And I think that we passed that point not too long ago in terms of why we should all be concerned. People ask why we talk about it so much. Because this is the future. This is where things are trending, and I hope people get their minds around that.
And it's a picture of total and complete worker powerlessness.
Yes.
There's no one you can appeal to. There's no union to file a grievance.
Nothing.
You can't even get a human being on the phone to say, look, this is what was going on that day. That feeling of powerlessness and inability to do anything, when you know you did everything by the book, that you did everything right, that is just so soul-crushing and so destroying. That's why this story really landed so much with me. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it, you get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.